Hi, hope you're doing well. First of all, thank you so much for being a full season bouquet subscriber. The fact that you trust that flowers are coming well before the season even begins is something that I don't take lightly and I so appreciate. And it also really is great for helping me plan out the year. I love to know that what I'm taking the time growing is really going to go into people's hands who are true flower lovers and local flower appreciators, which you all are. So thank you for that. And because so many of you have been with me since the very beginning, which again, thank you. I just want to do something a little extra this year because I think that putting bouquets in a vase is wonderful, and we design and create these with that in mind, that hopefully you can just put it in a vase and enjoy it. But I know that arranging with flowers is something that can be really meditative. It is for me, especially when you take the pressure off and just let the flowers guide you and just have fun with it. I always tell my girls, like, if you love it, then it's art that's worth loving, period. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. So, and if it makes you happy, that's what matters. So I'm gonna give you some tools and tips, but at the end of the day, I just hope this encourages you to go play with those flowers if you wanna do something extra, if you wanted to make a special gift for someone with your weekly bouquet, and just know that I personally don't think there's any right or wrong way. Flowers are meant to be enjoyed as art, and art is what you think it is. So off of my soapbox there, I'm gonna go over the tools that I gave you first, and then I'll talk about the bouquet that you're getting this week and then how to create an arrangement with that in a way that is foam free and hopefully won't fall down, because we'll talk about that. But anyway, so what I gave you was this white little pot. When you're picking vessel shapes, I would encourage you to pick something with an opening that is uniform, like so, or at least just open. I tend to avoid those vases that have really tight lips at the top, because those tend to restrict a flower arrangement. Now, those are great for stems and tall, maybe uniform arrangements, like with cosmos or things later in the season, but in terms of a mixed bouquet and a mixed arrangement, they can tend to start looking a little like grocery store factory grown flowers if you have them all just coming out at the top like a V. So wide opening is one thing that I gave you to work with, that I encourage to find any vessel for to make an arrangement. And then, as I said, we're foam free here because foam, as we know now, is really bad for the environment. It almost never breaks down. Animals can get into it, so on and so forth. But we use flower frogs, and flower frogs were actually something that were really common back in the mid-19th century, no, mid-1900s. But they fell out of favor when foam became really popular, and now we're back to getting into flower frogs and flower pins, as they're called, and they're much more readily available again. So the one I gave you was a plastic one. I love these for the fact that you can throw them in the dishwasher when you're done. They do have the suction cups, which help them stick to the bottom, and they're really inexpensive. However, I would encourage you, if you really want to get into this and you're really enjoying the process of using flower frogs and pins, you can get other shapes and sizes that are vintage. I'm always looking for these at antique stores or yard sales. And then, you know, even places like Michael's sells metal ones. I think the thing with metal ones is to be cautious. This is a perfect example of one I didn't do this to. They can rust, so I would suggest that you spray them with a sealant of some sort before you start using them in water, to avoid that and keep them living for a long time. But then you just get flower putty that you can also find in a craft store, put that on the bottom and put that into your vessel. But the one I gave you is really, really easy because all the things that you need are there. So to get started, all you would do is take your flower frog and your pot, and I just put a teeny bit of water in the bottom, and then I push in just a little bit, and then I twist. The twisting kind of really activates those suction cups, and I pull a little bit to see how it's doing. Mine's doing well. Push a little more, and then once I feel like it's really in there, you're good to go, and I'll add more water. So the tip too with flower frogs, which we'll talk about when we start arranging this, is just to make sure that as you're working, you really want to work in a circle to keep the balance even, and keep equilibrium, because otherwise, as you can imagine, things do start to tip, and that's the one frustration that's often found with flower frogs when you're starting to learn. So let's talk about the bouquet and what you're going to be using for your arrangement this week. This was a fun May collection. May is one of those months where I feel like a lot of the fluffy flowers come into play all at once, which is always fun. So we have peonies, of course, snapdragons, campanula. You have a white variety in your bouquet this week as well, also known as bellflower. We have Buforum, which is one of my favorite annual greeneries to grow because of these beautiful little white, excuse me, not white, yellow flowers on the ends there. And then Baptisia, which is wonderful as a perennial plant. If you're looking for something for your landscape, you should grow this. But it is nice because it has shoots of greenery that you can use in your arrangement. You can just take those off. And then of course it has these fun flower heads to use as well. So, oh, and we have Sweet William Dianthus. So when I am using peonies, I tend to start with them first because they're the heaviest flower. And I know that they're gonna need to have some neck movement. Most peonies are not gonna be completely up and down, some are, but I like knowing that they can bend a little. And again, that because they're the heaviest, I wanna start with them first to really get that flower frog down and ground into the vessel. So some of your peonies are gonna have multi-heads on them. One way to go about this is you can cut off each of the heads to have them as individual flowers. You could cut to make this low, because I should say, before I really get started, if you're gonna have a heavy flower that's tall, you're really gonna need to think about how to make sure that stays up, because it probably won't on its own. So you might wanna add some chicken wire into here too, which is another step for another day. But anyway, you're gonna wanna cut a little shorter. Typically about 2.5 times the height of the vessel is as tall as you wanna go to make sure it doesn't fall over. If you wanna play with that a little bit, that's totally up to you. But to avoid frustration if you're not used to this, I would suggest going low on this if you're keeping all three together, or going low on these stems. So I've already cut mine here, and you can see that they're pretty short. So what I'm gonna do is just start making them go on the edges. I'm pushing in about 1/4 of the way into the frog, and you can see it starts to flow away just a little bit. And then I'm gonna put one in the middle. Sometimes what I like to do with arrangements is have what I call a belly button. It's a flower that you think you're not gonna see, but you actually probably will, but it's just gonna add a center of interest to make sure you're not seeing your mechanics, and it's also going to add some depth to your arrangement so you can go taller around it. This one, and see, I'm already having some falling over problems. I have a shorter one I'm gonna use here. So I'm gonna do that as my belly button. And then I'm gonna go a bit taller with this one. Now, as you see, to keep things from tipping, I'm gonna start going on the opposite side of where I put the pink one. And then I'm gonna come into the front with this one. So now you can see I have some evenly distributed peonies to help to create some structure. And now I can add in around that. The next flower I'd suggest using in terms of weight would be the campanula. Now, campanula is an amazing flower if you have bud vases at home too, because do you see all these little side shoots? They all can live just great if you cut them off and put them in bud vases around your house. So you could end up with more than what you even have here for an arrangement. But same thing with the peonies. These are a heavier stems, so I'm going to go pretty low. And I also like how they have so much fullness on the bottom that they're also going to hide the mechanics. But I want them to poke out above the peonies. Personally, that's what I want them to do. So same with the peonies, I'm going to add them in a bit of a circle. And I tend to work in odds. You don't always have to, but I like working in threes because I don't know why. It just seems to add a triangulation that helps it look balanced. So I'm going to add some campanula here. And if you don't like it, you can always pop it off and move it. I don't like how that looked so perfect, actually, in terms of a V shape. So I'm going to keep playing with this, move it over to the front, maybe. And have some fluff. Yeah, I like that. And then I'm going to add this one in the back, and I'm going to cut it lower. All right? So now I have those components. Next, I'm going to go in with my snapdragons because those are another heavy stem. But the difference with snapdragons as compared to the peonies or the campanula is that it's a spiky flower. And spiky flowers are ones that I tend to make the taller flower in an arrangement because they're asking to be based on their spike. And also, they really allow you to feel elongated in an arrangement, even if it's a shorter arrangement, that you can still have some height to make your eye have some place to travel to. So I'm going to put this actually near the peony, so you have some height there. And then I'm then gonna go really low on this one. So another thing to say is locally grown flowers, I only use organic methods, but it's amazing how long the stems can be when you get locally grown flowers. But the sad thing is you really don't need that much. I cut them this low to encourage new growth to be as tall as the original, but at the end of the day, I just really never need that much stem unless I'm doing giant urns. So it's okay to cut off more than you need. Just make sure that if you have leaves on the bottom, you strip those off so that they're not gonna make your water gross and slimy while they sit there for the week. And then I'm gonna tuck this one in. And I should also add that when you have natural curves of things like that, those are ones I tend to put over on sides so that they also flow a little naturally around. And then I'm gonna put this one, actually gonna put that one next to the other one. No, I'm not. I'm gonna put it here. Okay, so now we have this look. If you're hating this, by the way, some people really want a uniform look. Totally fine. You just cut your stems to be all the same length and you would have more of a mound shape going on right now. I tend to like a tall to low flow, but that's just a side note. So we've got those 3 ingredients. Next, I would come in with my bouquet. Nope, that's nigella. Sorry, you know what? You can use nigella. Nigella is what I would call a wispy bit. Do you see how it has a little like wisps of leaves? And it's also a bit of a disc shape, which adds some interest. But this is one that I would use to kind of float your eye outwards as well. So I'm going to put this one over on the side so it flows out. And now once you have everything in, it's a good time to look and see where your eye is thinking there's a bit of a hole. I am seeing this. I don't like how much is showing. I don't like that stem showing as much, and I don't like all this negative space. Negative space is good, but sometimes there's too much. So this is when I'm going to use my bouquet and start filling in those spaces that feel like they need something, but maybe I don't want them to be too bulky. So I'm going to come in right here and add this bouquet in front of the snapdragon to soften that a bit. And then I'm going to put some bouquet in front of, I feel like these peonies are a little too touchy, like too much together for me. So I'm going to put that there. And you can see why I call it the belly button now, because now it's kind of hiding, but if you're from my direction, you're going to see it just fine. But it's adding some depth and dimension, but not so much that it's just looking like it's drowning in there. The next thing I'm going to add in is going to be my Baptisia. So as I was saying earlier, I'm going to take these little greenery pieces off. I love Baptisia's flow of their leaves, and so I'm going to use them dotted around a bit on the edges. And then, oops. And then also, yeah, on the edge there. And then I'm still seeing some space up from this angle. It's good to turn your arrangement a lot too, so you can see from all sides if it's going to be sitting on a table especially. And so now what I'm going to do is lift that just a bit, and I'm going to put my Baptisia stalk here in the middle to add a little more height. And then I have the Chinese forget-me-nots, which I just love so much because of how many tiny flowers are on them. They're great for dotting around the edges, or for the purpose, as I was saying, is adding a little height but it not being bulky. So I'm going to put that there. And then still think maybe something here would be good, so I'm going to take another piece of greenery and put that here. Okay, and then last but not least, I have some Sweet William. Truthfully, this one sometimes is hard for me to arrange with because it's very straight up and down. It doesn't tend to have a lot of flow and movement, and that's something I like. So I like to use these as fillers, like another belly button flower, but something to put in so that, let's say you are seeing your flower frog, or maybe there is this hole, it's something that you can put in, and it doesn't have to really be seen per se, but it's there to kind of add a placeholder. Or if you love it, just let it fly high and be tall. And then I'm gonna add in, I should have also added this bouquet, just like the Baptisia. these little side shoots, you can snip them off. So you could have bud bases of these, or you can also use them, as I'm doing right now, to put in on the sides that seem a little open. And okay, I think I'm done. And I actually think I gave you more stems than what I just used. So I hope that was helpful a little bit in just showing A, how to be playful with your tools, because at the end of the day, there's no right way. But B, I hope you also can see that it doesn't take much to make an arrangement. One little bouquet can go a long way if you just cut and play with heights and placement. So, okay, that's it for today. I'll do another one of these later in the season with another weekly bouquet of yours. But again, thank you so much for committing to locally grown flowers, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. Bye.